So hello gamers, there are a lot of sites in Phantom Forces. So today I wanted to count down my top 10 sites. Let's go for 1,000 likes and also comment your favorite site down below and see if you can predict which one will be my number one, because it's not what you would expect. It's not the Kosaku, I'll spoil that right now. But yeah, let's just get right into it, starting off at number 10 with the Cobra or Cobra EKP. I'm putting these together because they're literally the same site, but with a different reticle. And the thing about the Cobra is that it has a nice, I think 1.5x zoom, very different reticle for both the Cobra EKP and the Cobra. They both have really interesting reticles, and overall they're really nice. The problem with them, I would say, is definitely just the fact that they're kind of high off of your gun. I don't really recommend them over a lot of the sites in the game, but they are pretty nice on certain sniper rifles. I see this a lot on the WA2K for some reason, and overall it's a really, really nice site and definitely deserves a spot on the list. So I was like, you know what, number 10's like, you know, it's the bottom of the list, but at least it's on the list, you know what I'm saying? So at the number 9 spot, we actually have the ZPoint. I would say that the ZPoint, for what it is kind of better than the Cobra, and the reason for that is it's 10 kills. You can get this in literally one life. It does not matter. And the thing about it is that it has a 1.75 times zoom, so if you like that, it's pretty nice for that. I actually like it on the MP412 Rex for some reason, and overall, it's really not too bad. The thing about it is that it's not necessarily better than other sites in the game, but the fact that it's actually pretty good and 10 kills makes it really, it's gotta go on the list for that reason alone, really. It could be really trash, but slightly better than iron sights, and for 10 kills still be nice. So yeah, a bit of extra zoom. It's kind of obstructive as far as some of the higher tier sites go, but it's literally 10 kills, so you can't really have too many complaints about it. At our number 8 spot, I had to put this on the list because I really like it. It is the OKP7. I don't use this on a lot of guns, but let me tell you, it's pretty nice. It has a green tint, but it just feels and looks overall nice. It's got a very interesting reticle and like a little ring on it. It just looks pretty cool. Overall, the tint is not a really big problem. It might even look aesthetically pleasing to some people, but I don't really have a problem with it. That's why I don't really care too much about it being on the gun. And overall, it's really nice. I use it on the M3A1, and that's about it. Now, at number 7, we actually have a bit of a controversial take, and that is the Pilad 3, which is a little bit similar to the Cobra sight, but somehow because of how the reticle works, although it doesn't really look too good on the M16A3 because of the front post, this works really well for some reason for hitting headshots. I don't know what it is about the reticle, but it's really, really good on DMRs and things like that, or guns that you really want to hit headshots. But yeah, like Beowulf TCR, maybe the Mark 11, and some automatic guns that are really good at hitting headshots, this is actually really good on. I wouldn't say it's the best sight in the game, that's why it's not going super high on the list, but for its one specific purpose, it's actually really good for that. Kind of underrated too. I don't really see it that much. Got a weird ring thingy. A lot of people might not like it, but overall, I think it's pretty good. Number 6 is actually a pretty well-known site among certain people. A lot of people swear by this site, and I think I gotta put it on the top 10 list because, man, it's pretty good. It is the DDHB Reflex. It's kind of a mixture between like the Coyote and the Reflex, although it's just kind of a different Coyote. Same zoom level, although a different reticle, and it's a little bit more obstructive, I'd say, but it has a pretty nice plus reticle, which looks pretty cool. And overall, it's a very nice, sleek looking sight. It actually looks a little bit more like the old Coyote, because the old Coyote used to be a little bit less square, I'd say. I don't know, it was a little bit more of this kind of rectangle. I would say if you wanted to use a sight that's underrated, this might be the one for you, because for automatic guns, this is just really good. Now we're on to the top 5. Now the top 5 are some of the best of the best. At number 5, we actually have the Kosaku sight. The Kosaku has a 1.2x zoom, which makes your camera recoil feel lower. It doesn't actually lower recoil, it just makes your recoil feel better, which is why it's really nice on high camera recoil guns that are actually accurate, but just feel not accurate. So if there was a gun like an LMG or something that had some pretty high recoil, but you didn't really want to not have to use a regular sight, you didn't want to use like AMT Terminator, this is a really good option. As you can see, it barely zooms in, as well as the fact that since it's not actually a holographic sight, it's just like some dots on the screen of the sight, doesn't actually move around too much. If you look at the delta, the dot on the delta will move around when you move your gun, which is kind of annoying. Maybe you don't want that, and that's actually a nice feature about this. The more zoomed in you are, the worse your field of view is, so maybe you'll see more people this way, and it's pretty nice. The one downside I would say about this is that it's not an all ranges sight, and I would not use it on a DMR, except maybe the VSS, and I would also not use it on a sniper rifle, because 1.2x zoom and this reticle does not work. It just doesn't work for a sniper, not gonna lie. I don't think it works at all, so I wouldn't recommend it for that purpose, but everything else, it works really well for. So that's why I'm not putting it anywhere near number 1, because it doesn't work for everything. It's not as super optimized for everything. It is really just a CQC role. And there are sites later on this list that do CQC better or do CQC about the same, but all ranges better. So yeah, a really good sight. If you want this sight, I do recommend it highly. At number 4, we actually have the Reflex. You might think that this was number 1, but for me, not really number 1, and I'll get into why in just a second. So 1.5x zoom, it has a very nice dot, and it's not very obstructive, and it's just really good overall. Really generic sight, but really just good. There's just nothing wrong with the sight. Everything about it just works so well. You can use it on a sniper and a DMR, maybe not quite as well as some other sights, but for the purpose of a sniper or a DMR, it actually works, which you couldn't really say about stuff like the Kosaku. Like, they work, but not that well. This actually is pretty good for CQC sniping because of how nice the reticle is, and the 1.5x zoom, which is a little bit more than the Kosaku, kind of noticeable, not gonna lie. The reason I don't think this is super good is because of a couple of things. First off, it takes nearly 300 kills to get it, which is definitely a downside, because think about it, like 250 kills earlier, you could just use a ZPoint, which people say the ZPoint is a budget reflex, but you know, it's pretty nice. And the fact that you have to grind up a ton of kills on guns and you might have to pre-buy it, I don't know if that's really worth it, because there are other sites that might be more worth pre-buying. But as far as overall sites go, this is really, really good, although it does kind of struggle on certain guns. Number 3, we actually have the AMT Terminator. This kind of had to go on the list, let's be real. Overall, this is just an amazing sight. It has red laser benefits, which means you have better hip fire. You want to know actually what it does, because it doesn't just make your hip fire better. It has some interesting upsides and downsides you would not expect. If you want a full laser guide, I have that on my channel. Not only does it have those benefits, it also gives you ult aim, which functionally has like no camera recoil. So it is very good on high fire rate guns and even like lower fire rate guns, and especially on high camera and high recoil guns, because you can just make all camera recoil and visible recoil pretty much non-existent. It's very, very helpful on a ton of guns that are overall kind of hard to control, but it just makes the recoil feel like it's just nothing. And yeah, because of that, it's really, really good. I would say it does struggle at longer ranges, but up close, this thing is really, really good. And it doesn't super struggle at long range. You can still use it on longer range guns. Like, I can kind of beam people with this on like the Scar Hammer, because ult aim is just nice. It's just really, really nice to have. Keep in mind, it does count as aiming. It's not hip firing. And yeah, that's why I would say that the AMT Terminator is number 3. I would say that it does struggle at long ranges, and it does take over 1,000 kills. Actually, over 2,000. It's very, very difficult to actually get this without pre-buying it, which is one of the reasons that it's not number 1, as well as the fact that it is pretty much unusable on a sniper rifle. Yeah, you can use it, but don't. There's really no reason to use it on a sniper rifle. You can if you want to. It's just not going to be that great. But for everything else, anything automatic, it is really, really good. Now at number 2, we have either the Delta or Mini sight. And I mean, in my opinion, Mini sight is a lot worse than the Delta. Mini is way more obstructive. The reticle is kind of not as fun for me, but the Delta sight is really good. It takes 60 kills, so very early unlock. It also has a very nice reticle. Low zoom 1.5 times, but still pretty good on sniper. It's just really clean. It's just a clean looking sight that's very nice on basically every gun in the game. Yeah, it's not that great on snipers, but on DMRs it's pretty good, but definitely a lot better than stuff like the Kosaku, and like 700 to 800 less kills, and like 2,000 less than the AMT Terminator, and like 300 less than the Reflex. So that's why it's so good, is because very few kills. I mean, I literally use it on the M16A3. Before we get into the number 1 spot, let me know which one do you think it is. You probably know what it is, not gonna lie, because if you were keeping track of the ones I did before this, then you probably know which one it is. However, I would like to give a couple of honorable mentions. First up, IWI sight is really cool, and some other iron sights such as the Honey Badger iron sights, First Vector iron sights are pretty cool, but probably most importantly, the OEG. I thought I had to mention this. I was thinking about giving it number 10, but I decided that a few other sites kind of edged it out, because this is really good on like 3 guns and really bad on basically everything else. It's basically just an AMT Terminator with less of the upsides and kind of a pretty big downside of the big dots. However, the dot allows you to actually aim where the bullets are going to end up going, which is extremely helpful on the HK51B and the M231. I would say none of the other guns are really that great with it, especially when you compare it to something like, let's just say, the AMT Terminator, which just does the same thing but kind of better on most guns. Then yeah, it's not really going to be that great, and it's kind of edged out because of that. But overall, it definitely deserved at least a mention, if not a spot on the list. Because I only had 10 spots, I was like, you know what, OEG is going to have to go off the list. But yeah, I think it's actually really good. Kind of overhated and overloved at the same time. It's really strange. I don't think it's the best sight in the game, but it definitely isn't the worst. And people have called it the worst, and it's definitely not the worst. That's like that G36 dual optic sight and stuff like that. Those are way worse, but this is still pretty good. kind of nice for this kind of gun. Not gonna lie, I actually like it on here. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about the OEG. Do you like it more than the AM2 Terminator? Probably not, but you know, maybe you do. Anyways, without further ado, we have the #1 sight in the entire game, in my opinion, the Coyote sight. Now, the Coyote sight does take a little bit more kills than the Reflex sight. However, it works on literally every gun in the game. It works well on pistols. It works well on machine pistols. It works well on assault rifles, PDWs, carbines, shotguns, DMRs, sniper rifles. It works well on the frag grenade. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's got a 2x zoom, which means it's really nice to get a little bit of extra zoom for those long range engagements, which is kind of a downside, you might say, for a higher recoil gun, but because it has such a nice optic, like it's just so easy to tell what you're shooting at, this makes it great. And the fact that it works for everything, I use it on the Chris Vector because it beams people at range, but the Chris Vector is kind of a strange gun. I have a full weapon guide on that, but yeah, the Coyote sight just works. It just does everything good, and there's not a lot of sights like this that actually work on every type of gun. There's definitely a gun in every single category in this entire game that I use the Coyote sight on. I use them on revolvers. I use it on like the Remington 700 and the AWM and the AWS. I use it on so many guns. Another honorable mention is actually the EOTechs. I forgot about those. They're definitely not number 10 material. I mean, maybe they are. Depends on who you ask. Anyways, gamers, that is my top 10 sights list. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to like and sub, and let me know which one is your favorite. Mine is obviously the Coyote. I feel like just overall, it's so good. Although Delta is pretty close, AM2 Terminator is really good. I rank them based off of how much I like them, as well as just like everything that they do well. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.